There was a time when there were no clocks, no history, and no time. This audiobook takes you to that first cosmic blink where the very notion of time was born. What caused it? Can time have an origin if there was nothing to happen before? Get ready to question the reality of every second you know. Throughout history, time has been a subject of reflection and debate. From the moment we wake up until we go to bed, our lives are marked by the passage of time. But what happens when we stop to think about how we measure it? When we look at a clock, we see the hands moving, marking the passage of minutes and hours. However, behind that simple action lies a fascinating complexity. Time is not just a straight line that moves endlessly. It invites us to explore its essence, to question its direction and meaning. Thinking about time leads us to delve into concepts like the past, the present, and the future. How do we know that what we are experiencing at this moment is real? Is it possible that the past and the future coexist in some way? These questions lead us into philosophy, where great thinkers have tried to unravel the enigma of time. Along this journey, we will encounter various interpretations and theories. Some philosophers have argued that time is an illusion, a construct of our minds, while others see it as a tangible reality. In this journey, we will analyze how these different perspectives have shaped our understanding of time and its impact on daily life. The importance of time transcends the philosophical and delves into the realm of physics. Here, time becomes a dimension that interacts with space, creating a fabric that forms the universe. How is time defined in this context? Is it a simple counter of events, or does it play a deeper role in the structure of the cosmos? These are just some of the questions we will explore as we unravel the relationship between time and the laws that govern the universe. As we progress, we will encounter intriguing concepts such as absolute time and relative time. Newton's and Einstein's theories will offer us a new perspective on how time can vary depending on speed and gravity. These notions are not only fascinating but also have practical implications for our understanding of the world. The arrow of time is another crucial aspect we will address. Why do we feel that time moves in one direction? Entropy, that phenomenon that measures disorder in a system, will help us understand why the past is different from the future. The connection between time and entropy is an exciting topic that leads us to reflect on the fate of the universe. And of course, we cannot forget the Big Bang, the event that gave rise to time as we know it. This momentous occasion not only marked the beginning of time, but also led to the expansion of the universe. What does this mean for our understanding of time? Can we imagine a moment when time did not exist? The relativity of time will also lead us to explore how different conditions can alter our perception of it. Did you know that time can pass more slowly under certain circumstances? This idea may seem strange, but it is a tangible reality in the world of physics. In this journey, we will study examples that reveal the flexible nature of time. The way humans perceive time is another fascinating aspect. Why do we sometimes feel that time flies, while at other times it seems to stand still? Factors such as attention, emotion, and memory play a crucial role in our temporal experience. Understanding how this perception works can open us to new ways of living in the present. Time is also intrinsically related to biology. Biological cycles and circadian rhythms are examples of how our bodies are tuned to the passage of time, from the sleep cycle to the blooming of plants. Nature shows us that time is not just an abstract concept, but a reality that affects all living beings. As we move forward in this journey, we will explore how different cultures have measured and understood time throughout history. From ancient calendars to modern clocks, the evolution of time measurement is a fascinating story that reflects our quest to understand the world around us. In summary, this audiobook delves into the mystery of time. a concept that affects us not only on a personal level, but is also intertwined with the fabric of the universe. By the end of this exploration, we will not only have learned about time itself, but also reflected on its importance in our lives and in the cosmos. So join me on this journey where every second counts and every question brings us closer to the truth that surrounds us. Time, that concept so familiar yet so mysterious, has intrigued humanity since time immemorial. What is time really? Is it merely a measure of duration, or is it something deeper and more complex? Throughout history, different thinkers have attempted to unravel the meaning of time, offering interpretations that range from the philosophical to the everyday. The question that arises is, how have these ideas influenced our current understanding of time? In ancient Greece, for example, Plato delved into time by considering it a shadow of eternity. He described it as a cyclical movement, a reflection of an ideal world that existed beyond our tangible reality. What does this mean for us? Plato suggests that time is merely an illusion, a way to measure change in an imperfect world. Through this lens, time becomes a stage where things change, but where the true essence remains unaltered. On the other hand, Aristotle had a more practical and concrete view. For him, time was a sequence of events, a way to measure the movement and change that occurs in the world. Could it be that time is just a record of what happens around us? This notion invites us to think about how our experiences and perceptions of the world intertwine with our understanding of time. Moving forward in history, we find St. Augustine, who reflected on the nature of time from a theological perspective. He wondered how it is possible for God, who is outside of time, to create a universe where everything is subject to it. Is time, then, a divine creation that only exists in our reality? This question leads us to consider how our beliefs and values influence our perception of time. With the arrival of the modern age, thinkers like Descartes and Leibniz brought new ideas. Descartes, with his focus on doubt and reason, proposed that time could be measured objectively and quantifiably. But Leibniz, in response, argued that time is nothing more than a relationship between events. That is, it does not exist without the perception of those events. Does time not then become a subjective experience? A construct of our mind? The scientific revolution brought a radical shift in the way we understand time. Newton imposed his vision of absolute time, a time that flows uniformly throughout the universe, regardless of what happens. But is it really so? Could there be another way to understand time that challenges this idea? This is where philosophy and science begin to intertwine, blurring the boundaries between what we consider real and what is merely an interpretation. Continuing along this line, Immanuel Kant proposed that time is one of the ways our mind organizes experience. For Kant, time is not something that exists independently. Rather, it is a structure we use to understand the world. Could we then conclude that time is both an external reality and an internal construct of our consciousness? In the 20th century, the philosophy of time was again revolutionized by Einstein's theory of relativity. This theory not only changed our scientific understanding of time, but also raised profound philosophical questions. What does it mean that time can be affected by speed and gravity? Are we really experiencing time uniformly? Or is it something more fluid and variable? As we explore these ideas, we find that time is not just a topic of academic discussion, but has implications for our daily lives. The different ways cultures have measured time, from the Mayan calendars to atomic clocks, show us that time is also a social construct that reflects our priorities and values. How can these cultural differences influence our perception of time? Time has also been a recurring theme in literature and art. Works like 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez invite us to reflect on the cyclical nature of time and its relationship with memory. Could it be that in telling stories we are trying to make sense of our experience of time? In the end, the philosophy of time not only offers us answers, but also poses questions that help us explore our own existence. What place does time occupy in our lives? Is it a resource we must manage? Or is it an experience we should enjoy? The search for answers to these questions leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit. Through the centuries, time has been a fascinating mystery, a concept that reflects our dual nature. On one hand, we are beings living in the present, and on the other, we are thinkers contemplating the past and the future. This intertwining of experiences and reflections on time reminds us that, although we may not always have control over it, we can always choose how we live it. In the end, time is both a gift and a challenge, a constant reminder of our fragility and our capacity to create meaning in the world. Time is one of those wonders of the universe that, although it seems so familiar, is profoundly enigmatic. What exactly is time? Is it just a simple clock that marks the hours, or is it something deeper? A fabric that weaves together all the experiences of our lives. In physics, time is defined as a measure of duration between events. However, this simple definition is only the surface of a much more complex concept. The ancient Greeks were already asking questions about time. Thinkers like Aristotle considered it a means to measure change. But how do we know if time really exists if we cannot see or touch it? Modern physics has allowed us to explore time in ways we never imagined before. In the 17th century, Isaac Newton described it as something absolute, a constant flow that passes regardless of what happens around us. For him, time was like a river flowing uniformly, regardless of the nature of the objects swimming in it. However, everything changed with the arrival of Albert Einstein and his theory of relativity. Einstein showed us that time is not as absolute as we thought. In his view, time behaves more like an elastic band that can stretch and compress. Can you imagine a clock that runs slower in one place and faster in another? This is precisely what Einstein demonstrated. Time can be affected by factors such as speed and gravity. Thus, a clock on a satellite orbiting Earth can run faster than a clock on the surface, due to the lesser gravity it experiences. The physics of time is also intertwined with the notion that time can be seen as a dimension, similar to the dimensions of space. In this sense, time becomes a fundamental component of our universe. But what does this mean for our daily experience? How do these complex ideas translate into our everyday lives? Think about how you experience time when you are enjoying a moment like a gathering with friends or watching an exciting movie. Time seems to fly. But conversely, when you are waiting in line or doing something tedious, every second can feel like an eternity. This subjective perception of time is a fascinating topic in psychology and philosophy. It leads us to ask, is time something we simply measure, or is it an experience we live? Physics also teaches us about the direction of time, a concept known as the arrow of time. Imagine that time is like an arrow that always points forward. This relates to entropy, a measure of disorder in a system. As time progresses, entropy tends to increase, leading to the idea that time has a direction. This raises intriguing questions. Can we, in some way, reverse this process? Could we return to a state of lower entropy? Moreover, time is intrinsically linked to the history of the universe. According to cosmological theories, time began with the Big Bang, an event that marked not only the beginning of space, but also the beginning of time as we know it. What happened before the Big Bang is a profound mystery, as, according to our current theories, time itself did not exist. This leads us to reflect on how time and space are intertwined in a cosmic dance. The relativity of time is not limited to complex theories and equations. It is also reflected in everyday life. For example, have you ever traveled by plane and noticed that you arrived at your destination earlier than expected? This is because as we fly at high altitudes, we experience a slight time dilation. This astonishing reality reminds us that time is not a rigid concept, but one that can be shaped by circumstances. In the realm of biology, time also plays a crucial role. Our bodies are governed by biological rhythms and circadian cycles that regulate our sleep, alertness, and metabolic functions. Just as animals know when it is the right time to hibernate or migrate, we also have an intimate connection with time that affects our health and well-being. The way different cultures have measured and understood time is also a testament to its complexity. From the ancient Mayan calendars to modern measurement systems, each civilization has found unique ways to make sense of the passage of time. How does this cultural perception influence the way we live? What meaning do we give to time in our lives? The evolution of instruments to measure time is another fascinating facet of our history. From the clepsydra, which used the flow of water, to the sophisticated atomic clocks that have extraordinary precision, our quest to understand and measure time reflects our desire to control and comprehend the world around us. Finally, quantum time theory challenges our traditional notions of how time works. In the quantum world, time may be more flexible and less linear than we imagine. Temporal paradoxes, such as time travel, have captured the imagination of many, leading us to question the very nature of time and its relationship with reality. Time is not just a physical concept, it is a deeply rooted human experience. As we explore these ideas, we realize that time is intertwined with every aspect of our existence. From the way we live our lives to how we understand the universe, time remains a fascinating mystery that invites reflection and exploration. Are we really ready to understand time in all its complexity? Perhaps this is one of the most intriguing questions we can ask ourselves. If you're enjoying this journey through the universe and want to keep exploring more cosmic mysteries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Thank you for being part of this Star Odyssey. What is the difference between absolute time and relative time? This is a question that has intrigued philosophers and scientists for centuries. At the heart of this issue, we find two great thinkers, Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. Both have left an indelible mark on our understanding of time, but their approaches are as different as day and night. Isaac Newton saw time as a universal constant, something that flows uniformly, like a river that never stops. According to him, absolute time is the same for everyone, regardless of where you are or what you are doing. Imagine a clock that never stops, marking the same hours in every corner of the world. For Newton, this time is an objective measure that constantly moves forward, regardless of our perception of it. Now, let's turn to Albert Einstein, who revolutionized this view with his theory of relativity. For Einstein, time is not a fixed constant. It is more like an elastic band that can be stretched and compressed. According to his theory, time depends on the speed at which you move and the gravity you feel. This means that if you travel at a speed close to that of light, you will experience time in a completely different way. Isn't it intriguing to think that a twin who stays on Earth can age faster than their sibling who travels through space at high speed? The relativity of time can also be seen in everyday situations. When you think about a roller coaster, for example, those seconds of adrenaline can seem eternal, while a long wait in line can feel like an eternity. Here, human perception of time comes into play, which varies according to our emotions and experiences. But what if I told you that, in addition to our emotions, time also behaves differently based on gravity? Imagine you are on the surface of a very large planet where the force of gravity is much stronger than that of Earth. According to Einstein, time would pass more slowly in that place compared to a location where gravity is weaker. This means that if you leave that planet and return, you might find that many more years have passed on Earth than on the planet where you were. Can you imagine coming home and finding that all your friends have aged while you have barely changed? The idea of relative time leads us to consider the concept of the arrow of time, which refers to the direction in which time seems to flow. In physics, this arrow is related to entropy, which measures disorder in a system. In simple terms, as time progresses, things tend to become more disordered. Think of a glass of water that falls and shatters. The disorder increases over time, but could you imagine time flowing in the opposite direction and the glass reassembling itself? The difference between absolute time and relative time is fundamental not only in physics but also in our daily lives. We constantly face decisions that make us feel like time is speeding up or slowing down. When we are enjoying a good moment, time flies, but when we are waiting for something, it seems to stand still. This duality invites us to reflect on how we value our experiences and how our perceptions can change depending on the context. The physics of time also leads us to think about the measurement of time. From ancient sundials to modern atomic clocks, we have developed tools to try to understand and quantify time. However, despite our advancements, the essence of time remains a profound mystery. Is it really a continuous flow, or is it simply a construct of our minds to organize our experiences? The conversation about absolute time and relative time leads us to question our reality. If time can be so malleable, what does that mean for our perception of life and death? If time is not a constant, can we really speak of a past, present, and future in an absolute way? As we delve deeper into time, it is crucial to remember that these theories are not just scientific abstractions. They have implications for our daily existence. They invite us to think about how our actions and decisions unfold in this vast fabric of time. How does this influence our relationships, our goals, and our dreams? Ultimately, time, whether as an absolute or relative concept, is a fascinating topic that invites us to explore our own nature and that of the universe. Understanding this phenomenon not only helps us navigate life, but also connects us to the very essence of the cosmos. So, the next time you look at a clock, ask yourself, what is time really? Is it an ally in our journey, or merely an illusion that guides us through the human experience? The answer, as we have seen, is not so simple, and the journey to understand it has only just begun. Have you ever felt that time flies in certain moments and drags in others? This subjective experience of time is a fascinating phenomenon that intertwines with the notion of the arrow of time, a concept that refers to the direction in which time seems to move. But why do we feel that time has a direction and is not simply a cycle that repeats? The arrow of time can be understood through entropy, which is a measure of disorder in a system. In simple terms, entropy always tends to increase. Imagine you have a perfectly assembled puzzle. If you take it apart and the pieces are scattered, the disorder increases. Reassembling the puzzle requires effort, but leaving it disordered is what happens naturally. This principle applies to everything in the universe, from the way planets move to how our lives evolve over time. Have you ever wondered why we remember the past but cannot see the future? This is related to the temporal arrow. Our experience of time feels linear, with a beginning and an end. Most of us live in a world where time moves in a single direction, making the past immutable while the future is a series of possibilities. But what if we could travel back in time? Time paradoxes lead us to intriguing territory. Imagine you travel to the past and accidentally prevent your grandparents from meeting. Without them, you would never have been born. This dilemma raises questions about causality and the role of time in our lives. Is time really as linear as we perceive it, or is it more like a vast ocean where each wave represents a moment that can change everything? As we explore the arrow of time, we encounter the idea of irreversibility. Things do not usually return to their previous state naturally. Think of a glass that falls and breaks. Once it is shattered, putting it back in its original form requires effort and specific conditions. In the universe, this translates into the tendency of systems to evolve towards more disordered states. Understanding the arrow of time is also related to our own existence. We live in a world where time affects us in profound ways. From how we age to how our experiences shape our identity, time is a constant force that shapes who we are. But is our perception of time the same across different cultures or at different moments in life? Various cultures have approached the notion of time in unique ways. Some see it as an endless cycle, like the changing seasons, while others view it as a straight line moving toward the future. This difference in perspectives invites us to reflect on how our environment and beliefs influence our relationship with time. Is it possible that by changing our perception of time, we can change our life experience? In science, the arrow of time is also related to the expansion of the universe. Since the moment of the Big Bang, the universe has been in constant expansion, implying that time is linked to the evolution of the cosmos. This process of expansion suggests that time and space are intrinsically connected, forming a fabric that surrounds us and affects us at every moment. The concept of the arrow of time is also intertwined with death. Death is an inevitable end that highlights the ephemeral nature of our lives. It pushes us to appreciate every moment and to value our experiences. However, this recognition can also be distressing, as it reminds us of the fragility of our time in this world. The arrow of time also leads us to consider the future. The uncertainty about what is to come can be frightening, but it is also what gives us hope. It drives us to make plans, to dream, and to strive for a better future. Although we cannot predict the future, the possibility that something new and exciting is on the horizon is an essential part of the human experience. In the end, the arrow of time is a reminder that every moment counts. It invites us to live with intention and to cherish the interactions, laughter, and tears that make up our existence. As we reflect on time, we realize that while we cannot control its flow, we can choose how we respond to it. Exploring the arrow of time offers us a new perspective on our lives. It reminds us that although time seems to move inexorably forward, each moment is an opportunity to create memories, learn, and grow. So how do you choose to live your time? Will you let it pass by without more, or will you embrace it and fill it with meaning? The choice is yours. Time is a fascinating concept that, according to scientists, began with the Big Bang. But what does that really mean? How is time related to the creation of the universe? To understand it, we must first go back to that primordial moment when everything began to exist. At that moment, not only was matter and energy created, but time as we know it was also born. Before the Big Bang, the very notion of time may not have made sense. It's like thinking of a timeline that suddenly gets drawn on a blank canvas. Imagine the universe as a large balloon that is inflating. As the balloon expands, the points that were once close together move apart. This is similar to how space and time expanded from the Big Bang. The expansion of the universe is, in essence, the expansion of time. But how do we know that time really began at that point? Scientists use the study of cosmic background radiation, which is like an echo of the Big Bang, to trace how the universe has evolved, and therefore time. As the universe expanded, it also cooled. This cooling allowed subatomic particles to come together to form atoms, and those atoms grouped to form stars and galaxies. But here arises an intriguing question. Does time behave the same way throughout the universe? The answer is no. In different places and under different conditions, time can pass in different ways. Gravity, for example, plays a crucial role in how we experience time. In places where gravity is very intense, such as near a black hole, time slows down. This means that if you could observe someone on Earth from close to a black hole, you would see their time moving faster than yours. But what does this imply for our understanding of reality? It leads us to consider that time is not a universal constant, but rather a phenomenon that depends on the conditions of space. The relationship between time and the expansion of the universe also leads us to reflect on the future. If the universe continues to expand, does that mean that time will also extend indefinitely? Current theories suggest that if this expansion continues, we could eventually face a scenario where the universe cools down so much that it becomes an empty, dark place where time as we know it might cease to have meaning. In addition to expansion, the Big Bang also raises questions about order and chaos. Since that initial burst of energy and matter, the universe has followed a path of increasing complexity. Galaxies, stars, and planets have emerged, and with them, life. But why has the universe evolved in this way? The answer may be related to a concept known as entropy, which refers to the universe's tendency toward disorder. As time progresses, systems tend to become more disordered, and this is intrinsically linked to how we perceive time. From this point, it becomes essential to consider how the very existence of life has influenced our perception of time. Humans, by developing cultures and societies, have begun to measure time in a more structured way. However, this measurement is merely a representation of what time truly is, an incessant flow that connects our past, present, and future. And how does time feel in everyday life? Many people experience the sensation that time flies in moments of joy, while in stressful situations it seems to slow down. This perception is a reminder that time is not just a physical phenomenon, but an emotional construct that can vary greatly from person to person. Returning to the Big Bang, it is intriguing to think about how such a distant and ancient event continues to affect our existence today. Every atom in our body, every drop of water, and every ray of light we see comes from that primordial moment. It's as if we carry within us the history of the universe. This connection reminds us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. The question that remains is, what does all this mean for our future? Can we understand time in its entirety, or will there always be mysteries that elude us? By exploring time from the perspective of the Big Bang, we realize that every second we live is connected to a vast and enigmatic cosmos. In this sense, time becomes a thread that weaves our personal story with the history of the universe. Finally, reflecting on time in the context of the Big Bang presents us with a vast panorama full of possibilities. It invites us to think about our own existence, how every action and every moment contribute to the vast narrative of the cosmos. In this journey through time, we discover that, although time may seem like a straight line, it is in fact a tapestry of interconnected experiences and events that propel us into the future. What if I told you that time is not a constant, but a variable that adapts to circumstances? Imagine you are on a train traveling at high speed. For you, time passes as always, but for an observer at the station, the minutes seem to stretch. This curious discrepancy is an example of how speed can influence our experience of time. The relativity of time, a concept that has fascinated scientists and philosophers, shows us that time is not just a simple counter, it is more like a fabric that stretches and shrinks depending on the conditions. But what does this mean in everyday life? How do gravity and speed affect our perception of time? When you think of gravity, you probably imagine something heavy, like a mountain. But in reality, gravity also has a profound effect on time. A clock located on the surface of the Earth where gravity is stronger will tick a little slower compared to a clock on a satellite in space. So what would happen if an astronaut spent a long time in space? Upon returning, they might find that their clock has counted less time than their friends on Earth. Incredible, right? Now, let's focus on speed. Imagine you are an intergalactic traveler moving at speeds close to the speed of light. According to the theory of relativity, as you approach that speed, time for you slows down compared to someone who stays on Earth. This idea is known as time dilation and may sound like something out of a science fiction movie, but it is a reality backed by modern physics. But why does this happen? It all comes down to how space and time are intertwined in what we call spacetime. When an object moves quickly, it not only travels through space but also moves through a temporal dimension that behaves differently than what we are used to. It's as if the universe has its own rhythm and we are dancing to the beat of a music we cannot always hear. Time dilation may seem puzzling, but there are examples closer to our daily lives. For instance, the global positioning system, which we use for navigation, must take these relativistic effects into account to function correctly. Satellites in orbit experience time dilation, and if they were not adjusted, our directions would constantly be wrong. So, every time you use your GPS, you are experiencing relativity in action. Now let's shift focus. What about the human perception of time? Although physics tells us that time is relative, our experience of it can be quite different. A minute can feel like an eternity in a doctor's waiting room, while a fun moment with friends can fly by. Why does this happen? The answer may be related to our attention and emotions. When we are engaged in something exciting, our brain processes information quickly, making time seem shorter. Moreover, factors like age also play a role in how we perceive time. For a child, a year represents a significant portion of their life, while for an adult it may seem like the years fly by. This perception changes over time and with the experiences we accumulate. Delving deeper into the perception of time, studies have shown that circumstances and context can influence our experience of time. For example, in dangerous situations like a car accident, many people report that time seemed to slow down. This phenomenon occurs because the brain is processing a large amount of information in those critical moments. In our daily lives, we also face the pressure of time. Appointments, deadlines, and responsibilities make us feel like time is slipping away from us. This stress can affect our mental health and quality of life. Wouldn't it be wonderful to enjoy the present moment more and not always be watching the clock? As we explore the relativity of time, it is also interesting to consider how technology has influenced our relationship with time. From the invention of the clock to today's mobile devices, our ability to measure and manage time has evolved dramatically. However, this constant vigilance of time can lead us to forget to enjoy the little things in life. Finally, in our quest to understand time, it is crucial to recognize that while science offers us fascinating explanations, the experience of time remains deeply personal. Each of us lives time uniquely, shaped by our experiences, emotions, and even our relationships. The relativity of time applies not only to physics, but also reflects in our daily lives. So the next time you think about time, remember that it is not just a simple clock ticking away. It is a rich and complex experience, influenced by a variety of factors both in the universe and in our own consciousness. Have you stopped to think about how time affects your life at this very moment? The answer may be deeper than you imagine. Have you ever stopped to think about how you perceive time throughout your day? The way we live and experience time is truly fascinating and often feels like it has its own personality. Sometimes it seems to slip through our fingers, while at other times it feels like a constant and reliable companion. But what really influences our perception of time? The experience of time is not uniform. When we are enjoying a moment like a fun gathering with friends, time seems to fly. Conversely, when we are waiting in line or in the middle of a tedious task, time seems to drag. This difference in perception is due to various factors, such as our emotions and our level of attention. Have you ever wondered why time flies at a concert but feels like it stops in a boring meeting? Emotions play a crucial role in how we measure time. When we are happy or excited, our brains are more active, which can make moments feel shorter. In contrast, during stressful or sad situations, our minds tend to focus on details, making every second feel like a minute. This phenomenon can be compared to a movie you enjoyed. Even though it lasts 2 hours, it feels like it flew by. But if you watch a movie you don't like, each scene can seem endless. Attention also influences our temporal experience. When we are completely immersed in an activity, we lose track of time. This is what psychologists call a flow state. Imagine an artist painting or a musician playing their instrument. In those moments, time seems to fade away, and all that exists is the activity they are engaged in. Haven't you ever found yourself surprised at how much time has passed when you check the clock? Memories also affect our perception of time. When we recall a significant event, we often feel that time passes more quickly. This is because our minds tend to group similar experiences. For example, a summer full of adventures may seem to have passed in the blink of an eye, while a monotonous winter can feel endless. What memories make you feel like time has flown? Which ones make you feel like it has stopped? Daily routines also impact our temporal perception. When we do the same thing over and over again, the days can seem so similar that they blend into one. But when we step out of our comfort zone and experience something new, those moments shine more brightly in our memory. That's why we often say that years go by faster as we age. Our routines become more constant and less memorable. Speaking of age, have you ever wondered why children feel like a year is an eternity, while for adults it's just a blink? This has to do with how we perceive time in relation to our lives. For a child, a year is a significant fraction of their life, so each day feels full of discovery and novelty. For an adult, a year is just a small part of their accumulated existence, so it tends to pass quickly. Moreover, the culture we live in also shapes our perception of time. In some societies, time is seen as cyclical, where events repeat and life intertwines with nature. In others, time is linear, with a focus on progress and the future. This cultural difference can influence how people value time and how they experience it in their daily lives. Have you ever noticed how holidays and celebrations in different cultures can make time feel more special? Technology also plays a role in our perception of time. In the digital age, we are constantly bombarded with information and stimuli. This can create a sense of time speeding up as we are used to getting instant responses. The immediacy of technology can make us feel impatient, as if every moment should be productive. Don't you think that sometimes we seek instant gratification and lose the ability to enjoy simple moments? And then there's sleep, a state where the perception of time can become strange. During REM sleep, for example, most people experience vivid dreams that can seem to last for hours, even though only a few minutes have actually passed. This phenomenon reminds us that even in a state of rest, our minds continue to play with our perception of time in unexpected ways. The seasons of the year can also affect how we experience time. The arrival of spring can give us a sense of rebirth and renewal, while winter may seem longer and darker. This connection with nature influences our mood and consequently our perception of time. Finally, let's reflect on time as a social concept. Often we feel pressured by time, as if we have to meet established schedules and deadlines. This pressure can blur our experience of time, making us feel like we are always running. What would your life be like if you set aside that pressure and simply enjoyed the present moment? The perception of time is a complex and fascinating phenomenon that influences our lives in ways we often do not consider. Whether through our emotions, memories, routines, or culture, time is more than just a number on a clock. It is an experience deeply rooted in our existence. So, the next time you look at the clock or think about how the day is ending, remember that time is a dance between our minds and the world around us. Time is a fascinating concept that not only governs our lives but also influences the functioning of all living beings. In the biological world, time manifests in surprising and complex ways, from the cycle of the seasons to the internal rhythms of our bodies. Time becomes a vital force that shapes every aspect of existence. But how do living beings interact with time? What role do biological cycles play in our understanding of this phenomenon? Circadian rhythms are one of the most intriguing examples of how biology is intertwined with time. Imagine an internal clock that regulates our sleep, our wakefulness, and even our hormones. This clock, which repeats approximately every 24 hours, is an evolutionary adaptation that allows organisms to anticipate changes in their environment. Have you noticed how, when you travel to a place with a different time zone, your body takes a while to adjust? This is because your circadian rhythms are trying to adapt to a new cycle of light and darkness. What about seasonal cycles? As the year progresses, nature showcases a parade of changes. Flowers bloom in spring, trees shed their leaves in autumn, and many animals hibernate during winter. These patterns are not just a visual spectacle. They are life's response to variations in sunlight and temperature. Each season brings a new set of challenges and opportunities. How do living beings adapt to these transformations? Through evolution? Those who managed to synchronize with the timing of their environment survived and thrived. In the human realm, the influence of time manifests in even more complex ways. From the moment we are born, our bodies begin to follow a rhythm, a cycle of growth and development that aligns with the passage of time. But how do we perceive time as we age? Why does it seem that as we get older, time passes more quickly? This perception may be related to the number of new experiences we have. When we are young, each day is filled with discoveries. As we grow, routine can dilute the intensity of our experiences. Biological cycles also extend to health and medicine. For example, our hormones fluctuate throughout the day, influencing our mood and energy levels. This knowledge has led to the development of treatments that align with our natural rhythms, maximizing their effectiveness. Thus, medicine must consider not only what medication to take, but also when to take it. Isn't it amazing to think that time can be an ally in our health? Moreover, time affects not only living beings on Earth. Biologists have discovered that circadian rhythms are also present in microscopic organisms, such as bacteria and plants. This suggests that the relationship between life and time is fundamental at all levels of biology. What implications does this have for the search for life on other planets? If time is a constant in life, could there be living beings on other worlds that also follow their own biological clock? Humans have developed technologies that allow us to measure time accurately. But how does this ability influence our daily lives? On one hand, having precise control over time helps us organize our activities and meet our responsibilities. On the other hand, this obsession with punctuality and efficiency can lead us to live in a state of constant rush. Are we losing touch with the natural cycles that surround us? Culture also plays a crucial role in how we perceive and measure time. Different societies have developed their own calendars and rituals that reflect their relationship with the environment. From indigenous peoples celebrating the change of seasons to large cities marking the passage of time with events and festivals, time becomes a common thread that unites communities. What value does time hold in your own culture? How does it influence your daily life? In the field of biology, time is also a key factor in the reproduction of many species. For example, some plants bloom only during a short period of the year, taking advantage of optimal conditions for climate and pollinators. This is not just a matter of survival, it is a perfectly synchronized dance with the passage of time. How many times have you seen a tree in bloom and marveled at the beauty of the moment? That explosion of color is the result of millions of years of evolution, adjusting to the rhythms of the planet. The interaction between time and biology is also reflected in the adaptations of animals. Some species migrate great distances following precise temporal patterns, guided by changes in sunlight and temperature. This migration is not just a physical journey, but also a temporal journey, where time is a compass that tells them when it is the right moment to move. How do these animals communicate with time? What signals do they use to know when it is time to depart? Science has begun to unravel these mysteries, but there is still much to discover. Research on how organisms perceive and respond to time could open new doors in medicine, conservation, and understanding climate change. As the world faces increasingly complex challenges, understanding the biology of time could be key to finding sustainable solutions. In summary, time is not just an abstract concept. It is a force that shapes life in all its forms. From the circadian rhythms that regulate our daily activities to the life cycles of species, time is an invisible thread that connects all living beings. As we continue to explore this relationship, it is essential to remember that our existence is intrinsically linked to the nature of time. Every second counts, and every moment is an opportunity to marvel at the complexity of the life that surrounds us. Time is a fascinating concept that has been interpreted in very diverse ways throughout history, and one of the most intriguing aspects is how different cultures have measured and understood this phenomenon. From dawn to dusk, time has been a constant in human life, but how have various civilizations perceived it over the centuries? In ancient times, people observed the cycle of day and night as well as the changing of the seasons. And these natural cycles became the first ways to measure time. Have you ever wondered how a simple shadow can mark the passage of hours? Sundials, for example, were ingenious tools that used the position of the sun to indicate the time. Thus, time became a tangible experience, something that could be seen and understood at a glance. The advent of writing allowed civilizations to record time more accurately. The Sumerians, for instance, developed a sexagesimal system, which still influences how we measure time today, dividing the hour into 60 minutes and the minute into 60 seconds. This connection between time and numbers is like a thread that ties the past to the present. But what happens when different cultures have their own ways of understanding time? In ancient Egypt, time was intimately related to religion and nature. The Egyptians not only divided the year into seasons, but also observed the cycle of the Nile's flooding, a phenomenon that rejuvenated the land and determined the survival of their civilization. This natural cycle taught them that time is not just a resource, but also an element that can influence life and death. In contrast, the Maya developed a very complex calendar that reflected their deep connection with the cosmos. Their understanding of time was cyclical rather than linear, allowing them to see time as a set of repeating cycles. This view of time as an eternal return may seem strange to us, who are accustomed to thinking of a future that progresses linearly. But what if we also adopted this perspective? Western culture, influenced by Greek philosophers like Aristotle, began to see time as a series of successive moments. Aristotle spoke of time as a measure of change and transformation, suggesting that time only existed in relation to movement. This idea has endured and intertwined with the ways we understand time today. However, not all cultures have measured time in the same way. In some societies, time is perceived more flexibly, where punctuality is not as crucial as in Western culture. For example, in many indigenous communities, time is measured in relation to significant events such as harvest or the birth of a child. This way of measuring time may seem more human and connected to nature, don't you think, as societies have evolved? So have their methods of measuring time. With the invention of the mechanical clock in the Middle Ages, time became more precise and began to regulate people's daily lives. The sound of bells marking the hours became part of the routine, and the idea of losing time began to take shape. Could this precision have negatively affected our perception of time? Today, we live in an era where time seems to slip through our fingers. Technology has provided us with digital clocks and smartphones that keep us connected 24 hours a day. But despite having the ability to measure time with great accuracy, have we lost the capacity to enjoy it? More and more people complain that time flies by, as if they are trapped in an endless race. Festivities and celebrations also reflect how cultures have understood time. From New Year's to Dia de Muertos, these celebrations mark the passage of time in significant and emotional ways. These dates remind us that time is not just a number on a clock, but also a collective experience that unites us. Isn't it amazing how time can be a thread that connects people across generations? The way different cultures have interpreted time also teaches us about the diversity of human experience. At its core, time is a social construct, a form we have developed to understand the world around us. By exploring these different perspectives, we can realize that time can be much more than a simple resource. It can be a source of meaning and connection. As we reflect on culture and time, it is important to remember that each culture has its own relationship with this concept. Whether through legends, rituals, or measures, time remains a central theme in our lives. Who knows? Perhaps by better understanding how diverse cultures have measured time, we can find new ways to appreciate it in our daily lives. The next time you look at the clock or plan your day, consider how time has been perceived throughout history. Perhaps you will be inspired by ancient civilizations or the way current cultures celebrate the passage of time. After all, time is a gift, and how we measure and live it can define our experience in this world. The measurement of time has been one of humanity's most fascinating achievements. Since the beginnings of our civilization, we have sought ways to understand and quantify the time that passes around us. But how did we come to measure something as abstract as time? The history of time measurement is a journey that takes us from the shadows of early civilizations to the advanced atomic clocks we use today. The ancient Egyptians, for example, were pioneers in the use of sundials. Imagine a sunny day in the desert where the Egyptians realized that the shadow of an object could indicate the hour. This simple yet ingenious method allowed them to organize their day around the sunlight. Over time, this idea expanded and sundials became essential tools for agriculture, religion, and daily life. But what happened when the sun was not present? This is where human creativity truly began to shine. The clepsydra, or water clock, was another significant advancement. This device used the constant flow of water to measure time. The idea was simple. A container was filled with water at a determined rate, and by observing the water level, one could estimate the passage of time. Imagine someone watching as the water slowly glides, marking each passing minute. This method was not only ingenious, but also more reliable during the night or on cloudy days. Fast forward a few centuries, and we arrive at the invention of the mechanical clock in the Middle Ages. With bells ringing throughout the cities, these clocks became the heart of communities. People could organize their lives around the hours they marked, creating a sense of regularity and structure. However, despite their precision, these clocks still had limitations. What if we wanted to measure time with even greater accuracy? In the 17th century, the pendulum clock was created by Christian Huygens. This invention revolutionized time measurement, allowing for unprecedented precision. The oscillation of the pendulum became a standard that everyone could rely on. But how can we ensure that time measurement is even more accurate? The answer came with quartz clocks in the 20th century. These devices use the vibration of quartz crystals to measure time with extraordinary precision. A quartz clock can be so accurate that it deviates by only a few seconds per year. As science advanced, so did our understanding of time. The arrival of atomic clocks marked a new era in time measurement. These clocks use the vibration of atoms, specifically cesium atoms, to measure time with astonishing accuracy. In fact, an atomic clock can keep time with an accuracy of 1 second every billion years. But why is this so important? Precision in time measurement is crucial for many areas of our modern life. From satellite navigation to telecommunications network synchronization, exact time is fundamental. However, despite all these advancements, the question persists: can we truly capture the essence of time? As we explore the nature of time, we encounter an intriguing concept. Time is not just a constant flow, but a subjective experience. The perception of time can vary drastically depending on our circumstances. Why does time sometimes seem to fly, while at other times it drags? Factors such as age, emotions, and experiences can influence our perception of time. When we are enjoying a moment, it feels like time stands still, but in stressful situations, it may seem to speed up. This phenomenon leads us to wonder: how does our experience of time affect our daily lives? As we move into the future, the measurement of time continues to evolve. Technology advances, and with it, our tools for measuring time become increasingly sophisticated. But what does all this mean for us? As our instruments become more precise, we may also change our relationship with time. Are we prepared to face the implications of time measured with such accuracy? The history of time measurement is a reflection of our curiosity and desire to understand the universe. From ancient sundials to advanced atomic clocks, each advancement has been a step toward a greater understanding of what time means. And while we have come a long way, there is still much to explore. The next time you look at a clock, remember that each tick and each tock is the result of centuries of innovation and discovery. Ultimately, the measurement of time is a quest for meaning in a constantly changing world. Quantum mechanics, that fascinating branch of physics that challenges our intuition, takes us to a world where time seems to behave in surprising and often perplexing ways. In this realm, the rules we think we know about time fade away. What does time really mean in a quantum context? The answer is not straightforward and often raises more questions than answers. First, let's think about how we understand time in our daily lives. For us, time is linear. We have a well-defined past, present, and future. But what if I told you that in the quantum world, this line becomes blurry? Subatomic particles do not follow the same rules as we do. At this level, time can be more like a maze than a straight line. One of the most intriguing ideas that arises from quantum mechanics is the notion of superposition. Imagine you are at a crossroads, and instead of choosing a path, you decide to be on all of them at once. In the quantum world, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until their position is measured. This suggests that perhaps time is not as absolute as we believe. But what implications does this have for our understanding of the past and the future? The famous Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics tells us that we cannot know the state of a particle until we observe it. So, if the act of observation influences reality, could time also be affected by our perception? It's as if time has a changing nature depending on how we look at it. Does this mean that the future is not predetermined, but rather a sea of possibilities? A fascinating concept introduced in this context is imaginary time. This term, which may sound strange, comes from the idea that time can be represented as an imaginary number in certain mathematical formulas. This allows physicists to solve equations that would otherwise not make sense. But what does this mean for us? Does it mean that time, as we know it, could be just a mathematical construct? Then there is the time paradox. In the quantum world, particles can be in two places at the same time, which challenges our understanding of causality. If a particle can be in two places, does this mean that time can also flow in opposite directions? The idea that the future and the past might intertwine is difficult to accept, but quantum mechanics invites us to contemplate this possibility. The famous Schrödinger's cat paradox perfectly illustrates these ideas. In this thought experiment, a cat is placed in a box with a mechanism that can kill it depending on the state of a quantum particle. Until we open the box, the cat is simultaneously alive and dead. This play of possibilities suggests that time, in its most fundamental essence, may not be as linear as we perceive it. Moving on to another aspect, quantum field theory presents an even more intriguing view. Here, particles are not individual entities, but excitations in an underlying field. This raises the question, if time is a property of these fields, could it be that time itself is just a manifestation of something deeper and more complex? As we delve into quantum mechanics, we encounter the idea that time might be linked to entropy, the measure of disorder in a system. In simple terms, entropy tends to increase over time, giving us the sense that time moves in one direction. But what happens in the quantum world where particles can behave in unexpected ways? The relationship between time and entropy becomes a puzzle we are still trying to solve. Moreover, quantum theory suggests that time may not be a universal phenomenon. At very small scales, such as those studied by physicists, time may not be constant. It may be that at the heart of a black hole or at the edge of the universe, time behaves in a completely different way than we experience. Is it possible that there are realities where time flows differently? And finally, let's reflect on what all this means for our understanding of life and the universe. Quantum mechanics invites us to question what we think we know about time. It challenges us to think of time not just as a straight line, but as a tapestry of possibilities. Are we ready to accept that time might be more flexible and less real than we think? The exploration of quantum time is a fascinating journey that takes us to the limits of our understanding. It reminds us that, at its core, the universe is a place full of mysteries waiting to be discovered. So, the next time you think about time, remember that behind this simple notion could lie realities much more complex than we imagine. What if you could travel back in time and meet historical figures, or even see how the universe was formed? The idea of time travel has fascinated humanity since time immemorial, but is it really possible? In this section, we will delve into time paradoxes, those intriguing dilemmas that arise when we start to play with the notion of time. To understand it better, let's think about the famous grandfather paradox. If you had the opportunity to travel back in time and prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, what would happen? If you managed to prevent them from meeting, that would mean your parents would never be born, and therefore neither would you. But if you were never born, how could you travel back in time to prevent that meeting? This type of dilemma leads us to question the very nature of causality. Time paradoxes are like a puzzle that we can never fully solve. Some theories suggest that time is a river flowing in one direction, while others think there could be multiple timelines like branches of a tree. In this sense, every decision we make could create a new reality, a new universe where things are different. Imagine a clock that marks time, but instead of moving forward, it stops at certain moments. This is somewhat like what happens in some science fiction narratives. In many stories, characters who travel through time encounter versions of themselves at different stages of their lives. How are those encounters resolved? What would happen if you met yourself as a child? The possibility of interacting with past versions of oneself is one of the most exciting and terrifying premises of science fiction. Science has also explored these ideas. Einstein's theory of relativity tells us that time is not constant and can be affected by speed or gravity. So in a sense, time travel is not just a fictional concept, but something that could be possible under certain extreme circumstances. For example, if you traveled close to the speed of light, you would experience time differently than those who remain on Earth. But what does this really imply for the concept of traveling to the past? Another intriguing example comes from quantum mechanics. where particles can exist in multiple states at once until they are observed. This has led to the idea that when traveling through time, we could alter the present in ways we cannot foresee. By making a small change in the past, unexpected consequences could arise. How many things could we inadvertently alter? Some popular stories have addressed these paradoxes, such as Back to the Future, where the protagonist must ensure that his parents fall in love in the past so that he can exist in the future here. The plot shows us how even the smallest actions can have monumental impacts. Can you imagine the pressure of having to ensure that everything unfolds exactly as it should? On the other hand, the lost brother paradox raises another interesting question. What happens if you travel back in time and fall in love with a version of yourself? This situation challenges not only logic but also our emotions and the nature of love. Is it possible for two versions of the same person to coexist and have a relationship? Literature and film have explored these ideas in depth, offering viewers and readers a glimpse into the complexities of time. From H.G. Wells's The Time Machine to modern series like Dark, the fascination with time travel remains alive. The narratives are not only entertaining but also make us reflect on the impact of our decisions and fate. In the scientific realm, the notion of a parallel universe has become an intriguing possibility. Imagine that every time you make a decision, a new universe is created where you made a different choice. This could mean that somewhere there are infinite versions of yourself living different lives. What would you say to yourself in those other realities? However, not everything is fun and games. Time paradoxes also lead us to question the nature of free will. If everything is predetermined and every action creates a new path, are we really responsible for our decisions? The intersection of time and morality offers fertile ground for reflection. As we advance in our understanding of the universe and quantum physics, the idea of time travel might not be as far-fetched as it seems. But while science offers us new possibilities, paradoxes remind us that time is a concept we still do not fully understand. Every attempt to manipulate it could lead us to dilemmas that challenge logic. Finally, the human experience of time is a constant reminder that, although we may dream of the past and the future, the present is where we truly live. Time paradoxes not only entertain us, but also invite us to reflect on the meaning of our choices and the interconnections we have with others. In summary, time paradoxes are a fascinating field of exploration that challenges our understanding of time, reality, and our own lives. Although time travel may remain a concept of science fiction, the questions it raises are profoundly human and lead us to reflect on who we are and how our decisions shape our existence in this vast universe. The connection between time and space is one of the most intriguing concepts in modern physics. To understand this relationship, it is helpful to think of time as an additional dimension, just like the spatial dimensions that surround us. But what does it really mean for time and space to be intertwined? Imagine you are in a vast field. You can move forward, backward, left, or right. Now, add an extra dimension, time. Every movement you make in the field also has a temporal component. Every step you take is marked by the time that passes. But what happens when that dimension of time is affected by space? Albert Einstein's theory of relativity revolutionized our understanding of how time and space work. In this theory, time is not a universal constant that passes in the same way for everyone. Instead, it is flexible and depends on the speed at which you move and the gravity you experience. This raises a fascinating question. Is time an illusion created by our perception, or is it a physical reality that can be measured and manipulated? Consider a simple example. Two twins. One of them stays on Earth while the other travels in a spaceship at a speed close to the speed of light. When the traveling twin returns, they realize they have aged much less than their sibling who remained on the planet. This phenomenon is called time dilation and demonstrates how time can behave differently depending on the circumstances. Isn't it amazing to think that time can stretch or compress depending on how we move in the universe? Moreover, gravity also affects time. In places where gravity is stronger, such as near a black hole, time passes more slowly compared to places with weaker gravity. This leads to a profound reflection. What does time really mean in a universe where it can flow differently depending on where you are? This idea may be unsettling, but it also offers a new way to view our existence. The relationship between time and space can also be visualized with a simple analogy. Imagine a fabric where each thread represents a dimension of space and time. When a massive object, like a star or a planet, is placed on this fabric, it deforms it. This deformation represents how gravity affects both space and time. Thus, a moving object not only changes its position in space, but also its relationship with time. The notion that time and space are intertwined also raises questions about our perception of the universe. If time is relative, can we really trust our clocks to measure it accurately? How would the world look if we could experience time differently? Perhaps in a future where technology advances even further, we could find ways to manipulate our perception of time and therefore of reality itself. Reflecting on time dilation and gravity, another question arises. What implications does this have for space travel? If humans ever manage to travel at speeds close to the speed of light, we could experience time very differently from those who remain on Earth. This would not only change our lives, but also our understanding of history and the future. What if we could travel to other worlds and return, only to discover that, in our absence, centuries passed at home? The relationship between time and space also leads us to consider the concept of an expanding universe. Since the Big Bang, space itself has been stretching, and with it, time. This process of expansion reminds us that time and space are dynamic and constantly changing. As the universe expands, time also expands, inviting us to think about the nature of our existence in a cosmos in perpetual transformation. Looking to the future, it is intriguing to think about how humanity might utilize this understanding of time and space. Could we someday develop technologies that allow us to manipulate space-time in ways that facilitate intergalactic travel? Perhaps, in a distant future, time will be nothing more than a resource we can manage. Like energy or water, this opens a world of possibilities, from the colonization of other planets to the creation of new forms of life. Finally, exploring the relationship between time and space leads us to a place of deep personal reflection. If time is so flexible and dependent on our circumstances, how should we live our lives? Should we worry less about the time that passes and more about how we make the most of it? Understanding that time and space are part of the same fabric can inspire us to live more fully and consciously, valuing each moment in this vast universe we inhabit. The dance between time and space is a reminder that our existence is more complex and wonderful than we often imagine. As we continue to explore these concepts, we may discover new ways of thinking about ourselves and our place in the cosmos, always remembering that time ultimately is a deeply personal human experience. Time dilation is a fascinating concept that invites us to rethink our understanding of time. How is it possible that under certain conditions, time passes more slowly? To answer this question, it is essential to delve into the world of relativity, where the rules we know seem to fade away. Imagine a train traveling at a speed close to that of light. For the passengers on board, time passes normally. However, for an observer at the train station, the train's clock would appear to be ticking more slowly. This phenomenon is the result of time dilation, one of the most astonishing effects of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. What does this mean in simple terms? In our daily lives, time seems to be a constant. However, in the vast universe where speeds are extreme, things are radically different. Relativity tells us that time is not an absolute measure but adapts to the conditions it is in. Who would have thought that time could be flexible? This flexibility becomes more than an academic curiosity when we consider its implications. Imagine two twins, one staying on Earth and the other traveling into space on a ship moving at a speed close to that of light. When the traveling twin returns, they discover that they have aged much less than their brother on Earth. This phenomenon is known as the twin paradox and is a clear manifestation of time dilation. If time is a river flowing, in this case, the river has diverged for one of the twins. What happens with gravity? Time dilation is also influenced by it. In places where gravity is intense, such as near a black hole, time slows down even more. If you were orbiting a black hole, time for you would pass more slowly compared to someone far away from that gravitational influence. Thus, time becomes a whimsical companion, playing with our expectations. This phenomenon leads us to reflect on the nature of time in our lives. Have you noticed how, in moments of great excitement or danger, time seems to stretch? That feeling that everything is happening in slow motion is, in a way, an echo of time dilation. Although we are not traveling at relativistic speeds, our perception of time can be equally subjective. Time dilation affects not only humans but also satellites orbiting the Earth. These satellites, which are essential for the global positioning system, must account for time dilation to provide accurate information. Without this correction, positioning errors could accumulate quickly, leading us to think that something as mundane as a GPS is linked to the mysteries of the universe. As we explore more about time dilation, a question arises in the mind: could it be possible to travel through time? The idea of traveling into the future is, in a sense, feasible through time dilation. If we ever had the technology to travel through space at extreme speeds, we could find ourselves in a distant future while our friends and family on Earth would have aged much more quickly. The concept of time also invites us to question our own existence. If time is malleable, what does that mean for our lives? The way we live, our decisions, and how we value each moment change drastically when we consider that time is not a straight line but a complex fabric that folds and curves. Speaking of curvatures, time dilation also reminds us of the intrinsic connection between time and space. They are not separate entities, but are intertwined in the fabric of the universe. Every time we think about time, we must also consider the space in which it unfolds. This link is fundamental to understanding relativity. The implications of time dilation extend beyond theoretical physics. They challenge us to reimagine our place in the cosmos. They show us that, at a fundamental level, we are part of a universe that is much more astonishing than our senses can grasp. Time dilation is more than a physical phenomenon. It is an invitation to explore and marvel at the complexity of the universe. It reminds us that time, at its essence, is a valuable and precious resource that must be appreciated and understood. Thus, when reflecting on our relationship with time and how it behaves under different circumstances, we encounter a fundamental truth. Time is, in reality, a journey in itself, full of surprises and discoveries that await us. Finally, when thinking about time dilation, we consider not only how time behaves in the universe, but also how it can influence our lives. The next time you feel that time is flying or standing still, remember that, at its core, you are experiencing the wonders of a concept that has fascinated scientists and philosophers throughout history. Time is a mystery that we have only just begun to unravel, and every moment counts in this eternal journey. What would happen if I told you that time, as we know it, could radically transform in the future? As technology advances, our tools for measuring and understanding time are constantly evolving, from ancient sundials to sophisticated atomic clocks. Each innovation has changed our relationship with time. But what is the next step in this fascinating journey? The idea that time could be manipulated or altered is not just a topic of science fiction. In the field of physics, research is already being conducted that challenges our traditional notions. Imagine that in a not-so-distant future, we could have the ability to see time in a completely new way, as if we were watching a movie in slow or fast motion. Wouldn't it be amazing to experience time at different speeds? The evolution of technology also brings intriguing questions. Could we, in some way, stop time or even travel through it? Although these ideas may sound like fantasy, the reality is that science is advancing by leaps and bounds, and each discovery opens new doors to possibilities that once seemed impossible. Artificial intelligence, for example, is transforming the way we interact with time and allows us to predict future events with astonishing accuracy. Let's consider the impact of digitalization on our perception of time. Nowadays, we are surrounded by devices that allow us to measure time down to the second. But how does this affect our daily experience? The immediacy of information can make us feel like time is speeding up, as if each minute is shorter than the last. This raises a crucial question. Are we losing our connection to time as a deeper and more meaningful concept? The way we organize our lives around time is also changing. In a world where work and private life are increasingly intertwined, we may begin to redefine how we measure our time. Work flexibility and new forms of remote work are challenging the traditional notion of a fixed schedule. Could this mean that the future of time is more about the quality of our experiences than the quantity of hours on a clock? New technologies, such as virtual and augmented reality, offer a fresh perspective on time. Imagine immersing yourself in an environment where time can be manipulated at your will. You could live an adventure that lasts hours in just minutes, or experience a moment that feels like an eternity. These types of experiences not only challenge our understanding of time, but also open the door to new forms of storytelling and emotional connection. Advances in space technology also raise questions about time. As we explore the cosmos, the relativity of time becomes even more relevant. How will traveling at speeds close to the speed of light affect our perception of time? The possibility of colonizing other planets could mean that people experience time differently depending on their location. This could lead to a new era where time is perceived completely differently based on geography. And let's not forget the role of biotechnology in our relationship with time. As science advances in extending life and improving health, we may find ourselves facing the possibility of living longer. This raises a fascinating question. How would our perception of time change if we had more than 100 years to experience life? The way we value time could transform radically, leading us to rethink our priorities and goals. However, not everything is optimistic. The acceleration of time could also have an adverse effect on our mental health. Stress and anxiety can arise when we feel that time is slipping away from us. In a future where time is measured in new ways, it will be essential to find a balance that allows us to live fully. How can we ensure that as we move forward, we do not lose sight of what truly matters in our lives? Reflecting on the future of time also leads us to consider its philosophical meaning. As we enter this era of change, it will be essential to ask ourselves, what is time really? Is it just a measure of events? Or is there something deeper and existential at play? The search for answers could guide us toward a greater understanding of our reality and ourselves. Technology offers us powerful tools, but we must also be aware of the ethical challenges it presents. How do we ensure that access to these new ways of measuring and experiencing time is equitable? As social and economic gaps widen, the way each of us experiences time could be affected unevenly. In summary, the future of time is filled with intriguing possibilities and complex challenges. As technology advances and our tools become more sophisticated, it is essential to maintain an open conversation about how we want time to be a part of our lives. Ultimately, time is not just about measuring moments, but about giving meaning to each one of them. Are we ready to embrace a new concept of time that reflects our evolution as human beings? The answer, undoubtedly, is in our hands. The relationship between time and human consciousness is a profound and fascinating topic. Have you ever stopped to think about how we experience the passage of time in our daily lives? For many, time seems to fly in moments of joy and stretch in situations of waiting. This subjective perception of time invites us to explore how our minds interpret the world around us. Consciousness, that ability to be alert and to experience the present, is the stage where time comes to life. But how are consciousness and time intertwined? To understand it, imagine time as a river. As it flows, carrying you along its current, your consciousness acts like a boat navigating its waters. Sometimes, the river is calm and pleasant, while at other times it becomes turbulent and difficult to manage. This river metaphor helps us visualize how our experiences influence our temporal perception. Memory plays a crucial role in this process. Why does it seem that we remember significant moments more clearly? Looking back, those instances become milestones that mark the flow of time. The mind, by storing these memories, creates a kind of temporal map that allows us to orient ourselves in our lives. When we relive those moments, time can feel denser, as if we are experiencing it again. Emotions are also great allies of our perception of time. Have you ever noticed how fear can make seconds feel like minutes? Or, in contrast, when we are immersed in an activity we love, like reading a good book or enjoying a conversation with friends, minutes can evaporate in the blink of an eye. These experiences show that our consciousness acts as a filter that intensifies or dilates time according to our emotions. Studies in cognitive psychology have shown that attention is a critical factor in how we perceive time. When we are focused on a task, time seems to move more slowly, but when we are distracted, it can feel like time is slipping away quickly. Have you ever found yourself in a long, tedious meeting, desperately looking at the clock? That divided attention makes those moments feel endless. In the field of neuroscience, certain areas of the brain have been found to be involved in the perception of time. The interaction between different neural circuits allows our brain to evaluate and synchronize our temporal experience. But what happens when those circuits are disrupted? In cases of brain damage or neurological disorders, some people may experience a distortion of time where seconds can feel like hours or vice versa. This connection between biology and the perception of time highlights the fragility of our temporal experience. Culture also leaves its mark on how we live and feel time. In some societies, time is perceived cyclically, like a wheel that turns, while in others it is seen as a straight line with a beginning and an end. This cultural diversity influences our expectations and temporal experiences, creating a rich tapestry of how humans have understood time throughout history. Time, often viewed as a finite resource, can generate anxiety in our modern lives. The pressure to make the most of every moment can lead us to live constantly in the future, forgetting the beauty of the present. But what if we dedicated time to simply being? By practicing mindfulness, we can learn to savor each second, enjoying life instead of rushing to the next task. Technology has also changed our relationship with time. With the advent of mobile devices and social media, instantaneity has become the norm. But are we really making the most of our time, or are we just dividing it into smaller fragments? Constant connection can make us feel like we never have enough time for ourselves, which in turn affects our perception and experience of time. Imagine the possibility that time is not a straight line, but a vast ocean. Each wave represents an experience, each current an emotion. Our consciousness moves through that ocean, choosing which waves to surf and which to let pass. This perspective could help us see time not as something that slips away, but as a space to explore and enjoy. The idea that time is linked to our consciousness leads us to question our very existence. What does it really mean to live in time? If each moment is unique and ephemeral, shouldn't we pay more attention to how we experience it? The search for meaning in our lives may be deeply connected to our relationship with time. When we reflect on these topics, it is essential to remember that our relationship with time is personal and subjective. Each of us has our own story, and the way we live time is a reflection of our experiences, emotions, and decisions. Awareness of time can be our ally in the pursuit of a fulfilling and meaningful life. In the end, the relationship between time and consciousness is an ongoing journey. Each day is an opportunity to explore and better understand how we perceive time and how that influences our lives. The next time you look at the clock, ask yourself, what story is this moment telling? In that question lies the magic of living in time. The philosophy of time is a fascinating topic that has intrigued thinkers throughout the centuries. But what is time really? Is it an entity that flows constantly, or is it a construct of our minds? These questions have led many philosophers to reflect on the nature of time and its significance in our lives. Since ancient Greece, figures like Heraclitus and Parmenides offered opposing views on time. Heraclitus maintained that everything is in constant change, stating that you cannot step into the same river twice. This implies that time is dynamic and that our experience is always in motion. On the other hand, Parmenides argued that change is an illusion, suggesting that time as we know it is merely a perception. What if we considered these two perspectives as two sides of the same coin? Over the years, philosophers like Augustine of Hippo began to explore the relationship between time and consciousness. Augustine proposed that time has three dimensions: the past, the present, and the future. However, he questioned, do they really exist? For him, only the present is real, while the past and the future are mere constructs of our minds. Is it possible that we only experience the now, while the past and the future are just memories and expectations? The philosophy of time has also been influenced by the notion of being. Martin Heidegger, for example, explored how time is intrinsically linked to our existence. He proposed that human beings are beings in time and that our understanding of ourselves is conditioned by our relationship with time. Isn't our identity constructed from our past experiences and future expectations? From a contemporary perspective, time has been a subject of debate in philosophical circles. Some argue that time is an illusion, a social construct that helps us organize our lives. Others contend that, although time may be subjective, its existence is undeniable and fundamental to human experience. What does this mean for us, who live in a world where time seems to dictate our routines and decisions? The idea of time as an illusion is also related to modern physics. Einstein's theory of relativity has challenged our traditional notions of time, suggesting that it is not a uniform flow, but rather a dimension that can be shaped by gravity and speed. How do these physical ideas relate to our philosophical perceptions of time? An intriguing aspect of the philosophy of time is the notion of eternity. What does it mean to live in time while eternity presents itself as a dimension beyond our reach? Some mystics and thinkers have argued that a true understanding of time could lead us to a higher state of consciousness, where the present becomes a point of connection with the eternal. Could it be that by learning to live fully in the now, we approach a deeper understanding of time? From the perspective of memory, the philosophy of time also invites us to reflect on how we remember the past. Each memory is an interpretation of a lived moment. suggesting that our experience of time is also a subjective construct. Do our memories alter our perception of time, making it seem faster or slower depending on the emotions associated with those moments? Moreover, the relationship between time and death has been a recurring theme in philosophy. The awareness of our mortality often leads us to question the nature of time and its meaning. What value does the time we have left hold? And how does it affect the way we live? The search for meaning in the time we have left may be one of the most powerful motivations in our lives. The philosophy of time also intersects with ethics. How does our perception of time affect our moral decisions? If time is finite, should we prioritize certain actions over others? The way we value time can influence what we consider important and how we act in our relationships and responsibilities. As we explore these questions, it is also essential to consider the impact of time on our understanding of the universe. The way we conceive of time can change our view of the cosmos and our place within it. Is time a resource we must manage, or is it a phenomenon we must learn to experience fully? Finally, the philosophy of time invites us to look inward, to question our own existence and our relationship with time. By reflecting on these issues, we can find a deeper sense of connection with our environment and with ourselves. The exploration of time is not only an intellectual journey, but also a journey toward understanding our own humanity. Time, that elusive and fascinating concept, has been a source of inspiration for writers and artists throughout history. But what is it that truly attracts us to it? Why has time found its way into the literature and art of so many cultures? To understand this, it is essential to recognize that time is not just a measure, it is also an emotional experience, a thread that runs through our lives. In literature, time becomes a character in its own right. Consider works like 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Here, time does not progress linearly. It unfolds in cycles, trapping characters in repetitions of their own stories. Isn't it curious how this narrative allows us to reflect on our own relationship with time? The story seems to suggest that sometimes we are doomed to relive the same moments over and over, as if time were a trap. Time also plays a fundamental role in poetry. Poets, with their ability to condense feelings into few words, often explore the fleeting nature of time. How many times have we read verses that remind us of the ephemeral nature of life? In this sense, time becomes a reminder that every moment is precious, a call to live fully. Poetry invites us to pause and reflect on how every passing second is irreplaceable. Visual art, for its part, captures time in surprising ways. Think of Salvador Dali's paintings, especially The Persistence of Memory. In this work, melting clocks challenge our perception of time. Can time be so malleable? Dali suggests that our understanding of time is more flexible than we believe, a concept that resonates with modern physics theories. Visual art thus becomes a mirror of our own temporal perceptions. Cinematic narrative has also embraced the exploration of time. Films like Inception lead us to question the nature of time and reality. Through its complex temporal layers, we are posed an intriguing question: what if we could manipulate time? Cinema manages, through its visual and narrative effects, to make the audience feel the tension and emotion of time slipping away or distorting. In music, time is also essential. Musical compositions often play with rhythms and tempos that evoke specific emotions. Have you ever felt that a melody transports you to a particular moment in your life? Music can encapsulate the passage of time, creating memories that seem to come alive every time we hear a familiar song. Thus, time becomes the backdrop of our memories. Each culture has its own interpretation of time, and this is reflected in its art. In Japanese culture, for example, the concept of mono no aware evokes the beauty of the ephemeral. Japanese artworks, such as cherry blossom paintings, remind us that beauty and life are transient. This notion of appreciating the temporary is found in many aspects of art and literature. teaching us to find meaning in what is fleeting. Time also lends itself to experimentation in fiction. Authors like Julio Cortázar, with his work Hopscotch, play with narrative structure to offer multiple ways to experience time. The story can be read in different ways, blurring the line between past, present, and future. This invitation to explore different narrative paths reminds us that time is itself a construct that we can reinterpret. In sculpture, time can be captured statically, but the meaning attributed to it can change over time. The works of artists like Alberto Giacometti, which depict elongated and disproportionate figures, seem to speak of loneliness and the fragility of humanity in the face of the inexorable passage of time. Each sculpture becomes a testament to existence, a reminder that we are all subject to the same temporal laws. The relationship between time and memory is another recurring theme in literature and art. How do our memories intertwine with the passage of time? In The Invention of Solitude by Paul Auster, it is explored how memories can be distorted by time, creating a subjective reality. Memory becomes a place where time stands still and where we can relive moments that would otherwise have faded away. Finally, there is a romantic aspect to the way time is approached in art. Many works invite us to contemplate the beauty of what is leaving, of what is lost. Nostalgia becomes a powerful creative engine. In this sense, time is not just a measure, it is an emotional experience that connects us with what we have been and what we long to be. Through literature and art, time reveals itself as an inexhaustible theme, a constant reminder of our own existence and the changing nature of the universe. It invites us to reflect on our relationship with the past, present, and future, making us aware that although time moves forward relentlessly, there is always space for creativity and contemplation. In the end, time can be both an enemy and an ally, and it is through artistic expression that we find a way to understand it and make sense of our lives. Time, that enigmatic thread that weaves our lives, presents itself to us as a concept both familiar and strange. Have you ever stopped to think about what time really means? It is like a current flowing through our experiences, shaping our memories and determining our future. But is time something fixed, or is it rather an illusion that we have created ourselves? Throughout this journey, we have explored various facets of time, from the philosophical reflections of ancient thinkers to the advancements of modern science. Each of these approaches has offered us a new perspective, as if each philosopher and scientist had added a new color to the palette of our temporal understanding. However, the question persists: what role does time play in our daily existence? Life would not be the same without the passage of time. As days turn into weeks and weeks into years, every moment counts. Every instant becomes significant. Do you remember the last time you enjoyed a sunset? That brief spectacle of light and shadow reminds us that time is a precious gift, a resource we cannot spend thoughtlessly. But how can we make the most of it? Reflecting on the nature of time, we encounter the idea that it is not just a linear measure. Like a melody unfolding across a staff, time also has its rhythms and cycles. From the cycle of day and night to the seasons of the year, nature shows us that time has a pulse, a cadence that we can feel within ourselves. But how does this influence our everyday lives? The perception of time varies from person to person. For some, a minute may feel like an eternity, while for others, an hour can fly by in the blink of an eye. This phenomenon leads us to question the subjectivity of time. Is it really tangible, or is it more of a construct of our minds that adapts to our experiences and emotions? When considering this question, we realize that time is as flexible as clay in a child's hands. As we delve into the mysteries of biology, we find that time also plays a crucial role in our bodies. Circadian rhythms guide us, marking the rhythm of our lives from the moment we are born. But what happens when those rhythms are disrupted? The answer may be surprising, as our health and well-being largely depend on how we perceive and measure time. Human culture has attempted to capture time through various representations. From ancient water clocks to atomic clocks, each invention reflects our need to understand and control the passing time. But can we really master something so ephemeral? History shows us that, although we have developed sophisticated tools, time remains a mystery that eludes our control. Another fascinating aspect is how science has challenged our traditional notions of time, especially with advancements in quantum mechanics. Here, time seems to behave in ways that defy our understanding. What does this mean for us? Perhaps it suggests that time is not a straight path, but a labyrinth filled with unexpected twists and turns. Looking to the future, we face the possibility that technology will change our relationship with time in ways we cannot yet imagine. Artificial intelligence and biotechnology promise to alter our perception and measurement of time. Are we prepared for these transformations? The answer could redefine our very existence. As we reflect on time and consciousness, we realize that our experience of time is intrinsically linked to our identity. Every memory, every longing is anchored in a temporal framework that gives us meaning. How does this influence our decisions, our relationships? It serves as a reminder that time, more than just a resource, is part of who we are. Time has been a source of inspiration in literature and art, where it has been represented in countless ways, from poetry that evokes nostalgia to novels that explore time travel. Human creativity has found in time an inexhaustible theme. What does this tell us about our need to understand what we cannot control? Finally, as we conclude this journey through time, it is essential to remember that each of us has the opportunity to shape our own story. Time is a blank canvas, and we are the artists of our lives. Every decision, every shared moment contributes to the masterpiece we are creating. What legacy do you wish to leave in the vast universe of time? The relevance of time in our lives and in the cosmos is not just an abstract concept, but a palpable reality that accompanies us at every step. It invites us to reflect on our priorities, to value each moment, and to understand that, although time moves forward without pause, we can always find beauty in the present.